The seed of the Addams family was sown on February 6, 1932, when the New Yorker magazine's cartoonist Charles Addams sketched a window washer who was the unnamed Morticia before she made her first formal appearance in the New Yorker. While sources aren't sure of the exact date of her first appearance, it seems to be in 1937, at least according to Charles Addams. Some say Morticia was featured much earlier than 1937, and maybe even as early as 1933. The media speculated that Charles's illustrations of Morticia had striking similarities to his first wife, Barbara Jean Day, and he admitted in an interview in 1981 that the window washer Morticia sketch was the kind of woman he fancied, and because of this, all three of his wives somewhat resembled Morticia. He also admitted that parts of Morticia were inspired by the famous Hollywood actress Gloria Swanson. Today, we're going to dive into everything there is to know about Morticia Addams, the matron of the infamous Addams family, so stick around. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we do have a very small request first. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. That's it. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Morticia Addams? Morticia A. Addams, whose maiden name is Morticia Frump, is a character created by cartoonist Charles Addams as the matriarch of the Addams family. The name Morticia was given to her by Addams as a feminization of the term mortician. Unsurprisingly, Morticia exhibited independent behavior as a child. At the age of 10, she expressed a desire to work, went outside in the snow while having pneumonia, and even attempted to leave home, though her mother, Granny Frump, didn't intervene. On her 12th birthday, her grandfather, Grandpa Droop, gave her stock certificates. Morticia married Gomez Addams, who was due to marry her older sister Ophelia. Gomez, however, fell in love with Morticia instead, and they were married. After marriage, Morticia got a new last name as the wife of Gomez Addams. She's also the mother of Wednesday, Pugsley, Wednesday Jr., Pugsley Jr., and Pubert. In the original television series in 1964, Morticia was portrayed by actress Carolyn Jones. Is Morticia Addams human or a vampire? Believe it or not, Morticia's not a vampire, despite her pale skin in Gothic fashion. She's human in most interpretations, but heavily stylized with Gothic and supernatural undertones. Some adaptations suggest that she might be more than human, but it's never officially confirmed canonically. She has no fangs, she doesn't drink blood, and she's often shown out and about in the daylight. She has been described as a witch, though. In one episode, she looked like one when she wore a black pointed hat. There have been references in the TV series about her lineage tracing back to Salem, Massachusetts, and her association with witchcraft. It's been implied multiple times in the TV series. For example, Morticia is said to love smoking, but strangely, unlike her husband, she doesn't use cigars or cigarettes to smoke. The smoke exudes from inside her mouth directly. It's mostly just a gag, but this is also a clear indication of her access to some kind of mystic magic. Morticia Addams is 100% alive, flesh and blood, and human. She's not a vampire, although her seductive avatar makes people wonder. Across all versions of her, from TV to movies to the animated series, Morticia is often seen in daylight or well-lit rooms, unlike traditional vampires who avoid sunlight. While her family background, in most versions, shows a long line of eccentric Gothic humans, there's no relation to vampires. In the original 1960s TV series, her mother is Grandma Frump, who spends her time making potions, but there's no hints that she or her family are vampires, just witches. Most people mistake her for a vampire because of her pale skin, which Wednesday admitted was because she applies baking soda to her face. Her long black hair and dark clothing are her Gothic fashion choices, not indicators of vampirism. It's an aesthetic, not a species. It's natural to be confused due to her spooky, elegant style, and we think many of Morticia's looks throughout the years were modeled on classic vampire queens like Vampira and Elvira, which only adds to the mystique. In addition, her Gothic influences within the Addams family adds to her aura, where playing with horror tropes is a done thing, so Morticia leans into the undead visual style. It's again all part of the macabre humor. Why is Morticia's skin so pale? Morticia Addams' pale skin is a stylistic choice, designed to reflect her Gothic macabre aesthetic, not a sign of a supernatural origin like vampirism. Pale skin is a classic Gothic trope associated with 19th century romantic horror and figures like ghostly brides, vampires, and Victorian mourners. Morticia's look, long black dresses, sleek black hair, and pale skin, is inspired by silent film actresses like Theda Bara and horror icons like Vampira, who set the visual standard for darkly glamorous women. Also, since the series was originally shot in black and white, and the cartoon strips too, Morticia's pale skin provides contrast for visual impact. Her black hair and black clothing create a striking effect which adds to her mysterious and dramatic presence on screen. In the black and white 1960s TV series, actress Carolyn Jones wore heavy pale makeup to stand out against the dark set and costumes. Her skin sometimes appeared almost ghost white on purpose due to lighting and makeup. Morticia's look also adds to the macabre-loving Addams family, who embrace death, darkness, and the spooky, but in a fun, satirical way. Morticia looks like someone who might sleep in a coffin, even though she's just a loving, if somewhat unconventional mother. It's part of the family's charm, turning the creepy into something cozy and elegant. Does Morticia have any special abilities or powers? In certain adaptations, including the 1990s films and the animated series, Morticia demonstrates limited psychic or mystical abilities, including inducing flowers to wilt or exhibiting telepathic tendencies. However, in the recently released Season 2 of Netflix's Wednesday, Morticia Addams is shown to have some new special abilities, namely psychic visions, dove powers. Morticia is subject to psychic visions, dove-type visions that are generally more positive and uplifting, as opposed to her daughter Wednesday's darker and more intense raven visions. This ability runs in the family and was confirmed by Principal Weems in the series. Control and mastery. Having honed her psychic skills over decades, Morticia demonstrates a high level of control and clarity, far surpassing her daughter's early proficiency. She can read auras, communicate with spirits, and perceive deeper supernatural connections. Spiritualism and scrying. Morticia has demonstrated the ability to commune with spirits, seance, and conduct long-distance psychic communication, commonly using a crystal ball to connect with her daughter. She's multi-talented beyond the psychic realm as well. She's also skilled in botany, particularly carnivorous plants. She's committed to fencing as a former captain at Nevermore Academy, and she's musically adept because she plays instruments like the shamisen, the violin, and the tambourine. What is Morticia's eye color and hair type? Morticia Addams is known for her striking appearance, and while her exact features can vary slightly from adaptation to adaptation, here's the consensus across most versions. In most portrayals, particularly the live-action ones, Morticia has dark, expressive eyes that enhance her Gothic allure. Carolyn Jones, who played Morticia in the 60s, had hazel eyes. Actress Angelica Houston, who played her in the 1990s films, has brown eyes, which aligned with the character's look. Some animations and artistic renderings make her eyes appear gray or even green, but that's more stylization than canon. In all the adaptations of the Addams family, Morticia has her signature long, straight, jet black hair, which is typically floor length. It's glossy black hair that's always perfectly styled and sleek. Her hair is typically shown as pin straight, with the center part and almost no visible texture or frizz. I mean, that's kind of a supernatural feat in its own right. In some adaptations, like the comics or animated series, the length varies, but it's always straight and dark. Why do her eyes glow in some versions? Morticia Addams' eyes glowing in some versions, especially in the 1990s Addams Family movies, is a cinematic effect, not a supernatural trait. It's used for visual drama, not because Morticia has magical powers, though it feels like she might. In the 1991 and 93 films, director Barry Sonnenfeld used a special lighting technique where a beam of light, called a key light or catch light, was carefully directed at Angelica Houston's eyes. It made her eyes appear to glow or shimmer, especially when she looked slightly downward and her eyes peaked up, creating a mysterious, almost hypnotic effect. Morticia isn't officially supernatural, but everything about her feels uncanny. The glowing eyes reinforce the illusion that she's more than human, like a Gothic enchantress or an elegant witch, even if she technically isn't. The glow effect was inspired by 1930s through 50s actresses like Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich, who were filmed with soft lighting and eye highlights to give them an ethereal, almost divine presence on screen. It gives Morticia a timeless, mystical elegance fitting for the Addams family's matriarch. What does Morticia's dress and physique imply about her body type? Morticia Addams' iconic dress and overall style strongly suggests a very specific body type, stylized, exaggerated, and deliberately dramatic to match her Gothic aesthetic. Morticia traditionally wears a floor-length and skin-tight black gown, which gives her a mermaid or fishtail silhouette. It's flared at the bottom, tight through the waist, hips, and thighs. She wore dresses with long sleeves, sometimes with draped or tattered extensions that emphasized her movements. The fabric used for her clothes was mostly velvet, satin, or another form-fitting, light-catching fabric. In my opinion, every little detail about her dress implies her body type. For instance, the mermaid-style gown and tight bodice enhanced her small waist, showing an hourglass figure. Her tight-fitting dress accentuated her shapely figure, which is slim with an elongated torso, deep neckline, collarbones, and slender hips. Her long covered sleeves imply her slender arms and graceful hands, which Gomez is often found kissing passionately throughout the TV series. Overall, she's a looker with the right curves. This was seen in almost every actress who played her. Carolyn Jones had a naturally small frame. Her dress was looser by modern standards, but still suggested a narrow waist and delicate build. Angelica Houston's Morticia had an exaggerated hourglass figure, often accentuated by corsetry, giving the illusion of an impossibly small waist and wide hips/shoulders. Her tall, statuesque build added to the dramatic effect. The animated versions often exaggerated the silhouette even further. Super tiny waist, long legs, and flowing hair all meant to look surreal and stylized. Catherine Zeta-Jones plays an older Morticia in Netflix's Wednesday, and yet displays Morticia's age-old persona and shapely figure with aplomb. It's worth noting that the dress is Morticia's second skin, not just for fashion, but it's been designed to communicate mystery, elegance, danger, and femininity all at once. Her posture is impeccable, which is due to her body type. Morticia stands, sits, and moves with deliberate grace and poise, making her seem even more refined and elongated. Does Morticia age normally? No, Morticia Addams doesn't appear to age normally, though this is never explicitly addressed in canon. Morticia stays perpetually youthful across decades, even as her children grow up, like Wednesday becoming a teen or adult. However, the casting of Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia in Netflix's Wednesday implies Morticia in the real world has aged slightly. We think that's acceptable and rational. In every adaptation, whether it's the original comics, the TV shows, the films, or the animated series, Morticia never visibly ages because these were adaptations of the original Addams Family cartoon strips. The Netflix show is a spin-off of a visibly grown-up Wednesday, and therefore it was obvious to show a more mature Morticia. Otherwise, it would be distracting watching Wednesday catch up to her in age. Traditionally, in every adaptation, including Netflix's Wednesday, Morticia retains her signature look: flawless pale skin, sleek black hair, and an elegant, ageless demeanor. Suppose we were to consider her ageless portrayal in previous adaptations. In that case, the very nature of the Addams family implies the Addamses defy normal biology for comedic and surreal effect. For instance, Uncle Fester survives electrocution. Lurch might actually be undead. The family seems to be generally immune to pain, injury, and even death, so Morticia's lack of aging fits right into this universe of weirdness. While the family definitely isn't made up of vampires or ghosts, their demeanor definitely feels a little undead, making us think they probably gulped down some anti-aging potions to stay young. Morticia's mystical aura and unchanging appearance may imply magical or unnatural longevity. Also, her agelessness is mostly a visual and narrative choice. It supports the idea that Morticia is timeless, much like the Addams family itself. We're confident that if a show called Morticia were released as a spin-off to the Addams family instead of Wednesday, they would cast someone younger, like Ava Green. In short, age isn't a problem with the Addams family since they live outside the rules of reality. What is her relationship with nature, especially plants? Morticia Addams has a deeply, unusually intimate and inverted relationship with nature, especially with plants. Rather than the typical nurturing, life-affirming connection most characters have with nature, Morticia's bond is macabre, elegant, and often death-centric, yet it's presented as loving and even reverent. For instance, she trims the blooms off of roses and keeps the thorny stems. This is the opposite of how humans traditionally interact with flowers. We cherish the beauty, she cherishes the structure, the bones of the plant, and their self-defense mechanisms. This act implies an aesthetic of death, decay, or minimalism. Her pet carnivorous plant, Cleopatra, is a man-eating plant resembling a Venus flytrap crossed with a python that Morticia tends to lovingly. She even speaks to it and it responds, suggesting a psychic or emotional bond. Her interaction with Cleopatra sums up her perspective on nature. She perceives it to be interactive, and as macabre as she is, otherwise why rear a plant that eats meat? She identifies with the morbid and predatory aspects of nature rather than the greenery of it. Although everyone around her treats her like a goddess, with her plants, she's most natural because she considers them to be like siblings. They are obedient and respond to her, wanting nothing in return, just her time. Her closeness to the darkest side of botanical arts could be attributed to her ancestral knowledge of herbalism, poisons, and nature's magic. She knows, therefore she interacts. She bonds with the plants that are nocturnal or necrotic, things that grow in darkness, in rot, or the deep forest. In short, she supports the macabre part of nature. Why does her body seem to glide when she walks? Morticia Addams' gliding walk is a carefully crafted effect that blends costume design, acting, and film techniques to give her an ethereal, almost supernatural presence. Her iconic, long, form-fitting dress, usually a mermaid-style gown, restricts her leg movement, so she takes small, measured steps that create the illusion that she's floating rather than walking. Because the dress flares out at the bottom, her feet are mostly hidden, which further enhances this effect. The actresses who portray Morticia add to the illusion with their deliberate, graceful posture and slow, fluid movements. They keep their upper body poised and their gaze steady, which makes their walk look smooth and controlled, almost like a slow dance across the floor rather than ordinary walking. In the 90s films, the director used specific camera techniques and lighting to emphasize this ethereal quality, sometimes employing smooth camera pans and focused lighting on Morticia's face and eyes, making her seem otherworldly. All these elements combine to reinforce Morticia's persona as a mysterious, elegant, and hauntingly beautiful figure, someone who doesn't just move through a room, but glides like a shadow or a ghost, perfectly in tune with the Gothic and spooky tone of the Addams family. Does Morticia show signs of enhanced flexibility or strength? Morticia Addams, in most portrayals, doesn't display overt superhuman traits like enhanced strength or flexibility in the way that superheroes or supernatural beings do. However, depending on the adaptation, she sometimes shows subtle, almost uncanny abilities that hint at something otherworldly, though they're usually played for atmosphere or dark humor rather than action. Morticia is often depicted moving with slow, almost gliding elegance, giving the impression of supernatural poise or flexibility, like we just talked about. She's unflappable and barely reacts in dangerous or bizarre situations, suggesting an unusual mental strength or emotional resilience. She's calm under pressure. She possesses some unusual hobbies, such as trimming roses off their stems, growing carnivorous plants like Cleopatra, and sometimes showing knowledge of the occult arts. But again, nothing that implies enhanced physical power. Also, in the Addams family universe, the entire family seems to operate under a strange dark logic. Gomez performs acrobatics and sword fighting with effortless ease. Uncle Fester can survive electric shocks. So while Morticia doesn't show these extremes, she's blessed with zero exhaustion. She always radiates beauty and serenity. She maintains perfect posture and poise, suggesting possible heightened control over her body. While not overtly athletic, she's seen nimbly fencing despite wearing a tight gown in the Wednesday series. What does Morticia's voice imply about her physiology? Morticia's voice, slow, smooth, low, and velvety, implies a physiology that's subtly unnatural, almost preternatural. While nothing in her canon physiology is overtly explained, her voice gives us a couple of clues about her internal and emotional state, and possibly even hints at superhuman qualities cloaked in elegance. Her voice is low and resonant, often described as sultry or hypnotic. Her voice suggests exceptional breath control, relaxed vocal cords, and a calm, measured cardiovascular system, indicating she's rarely physiologically stressed. Her pace is slow and deliberate. She doesn't rush her words, which implies not only confidence, but possibly a lower metabolic rate or altered perception of time, almost as if she's outside normal human rhythms. Her voice is soothing and her tone is hypnotic. Her voice seems to disarm or pacify others, especially Gomez, who becomes entranced when she speaks French or even just speaks at all. This could suggest some neurophysiological anomaly, like pheromone-enhanced vocal resonance or a subtle form of compulsion or glamour, if you lean into supernatural interpretations. Of course, it's probably just a traditional case of chemical brain imbalance, by which we mean love. Physiology-wise, Morticia's voice implies great control over her breath. Her ability to speak so slowly implies precise diaphragm control and unusually smooth airflow, traits common in professional singers or trained speakers, but seemingly innate in Morticia. It suggests a calm, autonomous nervous system, rare in highly reactive humans. She commands a low heart rate and therefore low stress. Her voice just lacks urgency and stress. When she enters a room, she commands all the attention, thus there's no scope for anxiousness or stress. She controls the rhythm of the place, others don't control her. She sort of breaks any hypertensive atmosphere by injecting it with her calm demeanor and her relaxed voice reflects a body free of tension. Combine this with her posture and movement, and it implies musculature that is exceptionally toned yet relaxed, pointing to unusual motor control or neurological calmness. Additionally, Morticia displays hypnotic overtones, which is a tad supernatural. She can operate on a tone that is tuned into an infrasound, creating a hypnotic aura that allows her to calm, seduce, and even unsettle the person she's in a conversation with. This could be interpreted as a biological adaptation or a mystical trait, some kind of latent, inherited psychic ability. Are there any anatomical quirks in her makeup or grooming? Yeah, Morticia Addams' makeup and grooming choices, well, stylized for visual effect, imply anatomical quirks that subtly suggest she's not entirely normal, at least by our standards. These aren't explained explicitly in any canon, but they carry strong visual and symbolic implications about her physiology and nature. For instance, Morticia's skin is extremely pale, often porcelain white or even bluish-gray in tone, which implies reduced blood flow or oxygenation. It could also suggest a low metabolic rate or an altered circulatory system. She may not process sunlight or need typical levels of melanin. Her jet black hair, perfectly straight, implies no oil buildup or frizz, as if someone had stitched up artificial hair like a doll to her scalp, depicting an anatomical anomaly. It could suggest altered sebaceous gland activity or a supernatural immune system that maintains her grooming effortlessly. Her almost static appearance enhances her surreal, statuesque effect. Morticia's eyes are usually highlighted with exaggerated dark eyeshadow and mascara, enhancing her hooded eyes and giving her a sleepy, hypnotic look. It implies more than makeup. It might suggest natural preorbital darkness from either nocturnal genetics or a lack of typical human vascular pigmentation. In some adaptations, her eyes seem to reflect light, like a cat's or a predator's, hinting at enhanced night vision. Her lips are often blood red, wine-colored, or even black, which matches her Gothic nature. This could imply unnatural pigmentation, or as they say, smokers develop blackish lips. We think Morticia's natural flair for emanating smoke from her lips could be the reason her lips are darker, and therefore it's hidden beneath dark lipstick shades. Morticia's fingers are long and thin, often accentuated with pointed manicured nails, implying that anatomically, her fingers are elongated beyond average human proportions, suggesting a possible skeletal variation, like arachnodactyly. It could also mean she's from a lineage with unusual hand morphology, something subtly inhuman but elegant. Marvelous verdict! Like the numerous superheroes and related characters in the MCU who were plucked out of the comic pages and put into the live-action world of movies, Morticia 2 has been taken out of a classic cartoon strip and put into live action. Charles Addams' vision of Morticia in the 30s was recreated into live action in a TV series in the 1960s, so imagine the level of unreal adjustments the actresses cast as Morticia had to make to play the role. Well, casting was undeniably phenomenal. With Carolyn Jones, Angelica Houston, and Catherine Zeta-Jones, it was a challenge to keep up with the caricatured look of Morticia. Black lips, a gliding gait, pale skin color, and a posture as perfect as a statue were some mighty challenges that were met with difficulty. The end product was great, but the actresses were drained. Carolyn Jones admitted that she had to control her breath to ensure her waist looked slender. Her movements were restricted since she couldn't move very fast in the tight gown. So, both physically and mentally, it's a challenge to play Morticia. Actors took on her role only because they were fans of the Addams family. I think the casting and writing team of Netflix's Wednesday did a fabulous job of casting Catherine Zeta-Jones by keeping her real and not making her look like Morticia from the cartoon strip. Zeta-Jones is even depicted fencing, depicting a version of Morticia that's not just more flexible, but also opened up and freer. She's the same in thought and action, but it feels as though Zeta-Jones's version has more room to play around. As long as we see Morticia playing the goddess of the macabre, we'll be satisfied with the portrayal. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye while I work on perfecting my posture like Morticia. Oh wait, I might have to work on my slender waist as well. That's all we got for you this time, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.